Okay, everyone, we'll learn a little bit of Hasidus. We didn't learn in the morning, so we'll do it now. Still in the morning. So this mimer, is we started already a couple of days ago, this mimer, but it's a mimer that speaks, it was said of a Chanukas Habis. Chanukas Habis, inauguration of the Bais, is a Chanukah mimer, but it was, we're learning it now because it's associated with the 3 weeks, with the destruction of Beis HaMikdash, Bein HaMetzorim. So, obviously a mimer of the Alter Rebbe. And last we discussed was that from the time the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, it was, in a way, instead of the Kedusha of the Beis HaMikdash being completely taken away, removed, God forbid, the Kedusha of the Beis HaMikdash was dispersed.
Right.
Disseminated to all the synagogues all over the world. That's why a shul is called Beis Mikdash Me'at, like a miniature Beis HaMikdash, a small Beis Mikdash. And obviously it has the sanctity of a Beis Knesset. And I think I just saw it. Where did I see it? It's gonna be right here. The concept of that it says that the prayer of a person is primarily being heard in the shul, davening in shul. You'll see it now. Shechor Beis Hamikdash Hagam Shenichum Lishtachveis. Once the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, although we cannot prostrate ourselves, Akoponim Ispashto Kedusha Sorazu Efes Katzov Mikdash Me'at Beis HaKnesset Beis HaMikdash. But the Kedusha was spread over, was disseminated in Efes Katzeu, at least to a small amount, minute amount from what was in the Beis HaMikdash. Okay. Now, we asked the question yesterday, why do you say that we can't prostrate ourselves? What stops you from prostrating yourself now? So he explains that what prostrating mean, bittul, nullification. So he says the bowing that you can do, for example, you say in Aleinu, that we are prostrating ourselves, we are bowing, that's an outer type of a bittul. There are 2 levels of bittul, the inner one and the outer one. So the shtachavod, the bowing that we do now, it's an outer type of bittul. The shtachavod that was done in the Beis HaMikdash was an inner, much deeper. The nefesh itself is nullified. Like the difference between, remember the difference between, for example, you say to, I am doing what you want for me because I respect you, but I do it just because you asked me. That's not my will.
Right. If
you sit down and ask for what my desires are, it might be completely different things.
Right.
So that's one level of bittul, because just the fact that I'm doing what I'm being asked to do, that's one level. That's the outer bittul. But the inner level of bittul is that my will becomes your will. You understand? I take your will and I take it so in that I say, this is my will. I have no other desires. What is your will? It's like a soldier. What is your will? To win the war. He doesn't think about the 5 years from now we'll be in the university, we'll be doing this, we'll be doing this. Completely nullifying himself. He has no desires, no aspirations, nothing. This is whatever the master wants, whatever Hashem wants from you, this is what you do. So but that type of bittul was possible in the time of Beis HaMikdash, and it will be again in the time of Mashiach. We introduced again in the time of Mashiach, and we'll see in the Maimer if we can somewhat get to these.
And we prostrate ourselves on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur in the shul. Now, unfortunately, you're after not being in the shul, and you get to that part, you still prostrate yourself.
No, the question if you should do it in a place where there's no Sefer Torah, there's no.
Right,
it's another Inyan. I have to check.
So therefore, I probably wouldn't do that if, unfortunately, we would have to be home.
But let's see. It says. So after the Churban, after the destruction, we are unable to see and to bow. But the light of the Shekhinah, the light of the divine presence that radiated in Beis Hamikdash was divided to many parts, so to speak. And every Beis Knesset, every place of every congregation, every place of study, house of learning, has part of that, and that's why it's called Migdash Me'at. And then he writes Efes Katzeu Migdash Me'at, meaning that there is a very small amount from that radiation, from that kedusha, from that light. And so we can reach. So think of it this way: since the revelation from Beis Hamikdash is in shul, in synagogues, you can reach a higher level of bittul specifically in a synagogue. Okay, so you can reach the ishtachava. That really answers your question whether you should do it if you're not davening in Yom Kippur or Shoshana, God forbid, if you're not davening in shul. What do you do in terms of the bowing, right? So he says that to get to that level of bittul, you can do in a shul because it's similar to Beis Hamikdash. Vaynu b'shas tefillah. He says when can you do it? Not just by walking into shul. It's actually in the time of davening. They can activate the inner level of ishtachavot, the inner level of bittul. She'az odom medabek es atzmo lekoiner. At that time, the time of davening, you're cleaving yourself to Hashem. You're like gluing yourself, connecting yourself to Hashem. V'roitze levatel es atzmo neged hamelech malchus shel olam, and he wants to nullify himself in front of the awesomeness of the king of the world. Kol chad lefum shiur dilei. Each one according to his capacity, each one according to his level. There's one person that does it externally out and because he's forced to do it. So that's external. There's a greater power than me that asks me to do something, so I do it. And over here, Alter Rebbe brings the Gemara in Masechta Brachos, page Vav Amud Aleph, that your prayer is being heard primarily in the shul. Why? Because over there is the dissemination of the Shekhinah, or divine presence, and there you can activate the level of ishtachava, the level of prostrating and nullification, like a candle in front of the big flame, like you're becoming one with the big fire. If you have many candles, you put them next to the big fire, you're becoming one, and this is primarily being done in a synagogue. Now, this nullification is primarily in the neshamas. Remember, we discussed before the difference between the nullification of souls and the nullification of angels. And the nullification of souls is greater and higher than the nullification of angels.
Right.
Why? Because the nullification of angels can be heard, because you hear them. And we say, Kodesh, 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 and the Novi was able to hear the singing of the angels, but he was not able to hear the singing of the souls. And we know that the souls are also singing, because it says, that they will always, Kodesh, 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 referring to the Malachim. But Kedoshim is referring to the angels. Now, there's another aspect to the neshamas, that their singing, their praising is constant. The praising of the angels is at a given time. Like we know the whole story with Yaakov and the angel, that the angel said, "Now I have to go because this is my time to sing." So it shows that that the angels are falling under time and space. They are limited to time and space, which contrary to the angels, to the souls that are not limited to time and space. So to speak specifically about the neshamas, that they are one like a candle in front of a big flame, that separates from the wick, fire that leaves the wick and becomes one with the avuka, with the fire. The divine presence is the assembly of Am Yisrael, the source of Neshamas Yisrael. Bonim atim lavai lekechem. You are the children for Hashem, as it says in Parshas Re'eh, 14a. Bonim atem lavai lekechem boro kro davur. We said the statement before, the son is like the leg of the father. The same way that the leg is nullified to the head, so we are referring to the same type of bittul, same type of nullification. And neshamas are nullified to Hashem on the neshamas souls are nullified to God on a deeper level. Mashein ken amalochim heim bechinas nifrodim. On the other hand, the angels are on a level that is called nifrodim, separated. Why? Because angels have to be enclosed in vessels that are limiting. They have to be enclosed in garments that are limiting them. As we said, they are falling under time and space. And how much more so when they descend down. And over here the Alter brings the famous incident of the Nephilim. Nephilim is those who are fallen from the sky, and they said they'll do a better job than us, and they ended up doing. They did more destruction than benefit. So, as we said before, that the nullification of the will, nullification of Rotzin, that is being done through the resting of the Shechina in Beis HaMikdash.
Yeah.
And similar to that is the shuls, Mikdash Me'at, brings about that the one who nullifies himself loses his own rotzin, and that's the level that you want to reach. That you lose your own rotzin, say not because of despair, because of not thinking that you can get what you want. You are capable of getting what you want, but you're giving over your rotzin to Hashem. Say Hashem's rotzin is my rotzin. I don't have rotzin on my own. To get to that level, it takes a shul. It takes a Beis HaMikdash.
We got to Gimel here, right?
Well, one second. So we said this type of bittul cannot be done with the angels because they have limiting vessels, and they are tied to, they are limited to the time and space. They cannot be one. They cannot be unified with Hashem's infinite light, and to be one with Him. So even when they are being nullified, they are somewhat subjugate themselves. They force themselves to be nullified. When it comes to the higher level of bittul that only exists with Israel, with the Jewish people, they're the children of Hashem and are part of Him, kavayochel, so to speak, part of God, because of their supernal root, they can reach this level of bittul, even when their neshama is enclosed in a physical body that is very lowly. And by doing so, if they can reach this level of bittul, being in a physical body, they reach the purpose why they were created. That completes Hashem's reason in creating the world. That's the dira b'tachtonim. You can reach this inner level of bittul, being one with the Ein Sof, and to remain in a physical body. That's the ultimate. If you want to see the whole thing of the Nephilim, it's in Bereshis, chapter 6, verse 4. It speaks about the great descent that was caused to the angels once they were enclosed in a physical body. We said before that the angels are only comprised of air and fire.
Right.
They don't have the 4 elements. But the moment that you also add to it the element of earth and water, so it caused a great nefila to them, a great descent.
Didn't turn out well for them.
And that's really the reason why we have the capability of uplifting the body as well. And Malachim did not have that capability. So when they went into a physical body, they were degraded. When a human being goes into a physical body, although his neshama is somewhat compromised, because it's now in a physical body, is in prison, so to speak, but he has because of the neshama is rooted so high, he has the capability of elevating the body.
Bigger potential.
in order to have the indwelling of the Shechina in the Beis Hamikdash, Hashem Omar Lishkin Chulu. And this is written in the book of Melachim, these words, Hashem Omar Lishkin, Hashem said to dwell. Hikdim David Shleima Inyan Chanukas Habis. Why did they need the inauguration of the Beis Hamikdash? What is Chanukas Habis? Mizmor Shir Chanukas Habis. And David HaMelech is already speaking about it before it even happened.
Right.
Because David did not merit to see the Beis Hamikdash physically.
Right.
It says David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayom, is living in everlasting life. But he passed away before. What we know, he passed away before his son Shlomo Melech built. He had the schus to build to buy the land,
right,
which is the main thing. He bought a lot, but did not build the Beis Hamikdash.
I think he had made instructions for it too.
Right. But what do we need is Chanukas Habis? What's the whole thing of Chanukas Habis? Still this very day, if somebody buys a new home, moves into a different house, a new house, it makes Chanukas Habis, inauguration. So it says Chanukah, to do inauguration, is the same language as chinuch, education, instructing. Like it's written in Mishlei 22:6 that you have to instruct, you have to educate a child according to his way. Right? If a child is very into a certain hobby, or he's obsessive with something, you have to find a way to speak to him with his own, using examples from his own world, this way to inject in him the education, but at the same time not pushing him away. Okay? Right. So that's what I mean, al-pi darko. Obviously there's many interpretations to what Shlomo HaMelech meant in this statement. You have to educate him according to his way. If you're calling him now, if you're calling him a young man, why would you educate him according to his own way? Obviously his way is not yet established. So it's not so... It's a very deep statement. It's not just by saying, okay, educate him according to his way. There's a lot of interpretation, explanation of what it means. But Alter Rebbe tells us in the Kuzet Torah like this: when we educate him in learning, we don't just give him information. We don't just, okay, sit down. The Torah is 5 books, Bereshit Shmois. I'll sit with you every day for 5 hours. He gives the information and it's finished. Once you have the information, you're good to go. You learn Chumash, you learn Mishnah, you learn Gemara, you learn Shulchan Aruch. That's it. You're out. Do whatever you want. It doesn't work that way. So it says, when we teach him to learn, it's not just learning. It's something that is in front of you always. It says when you educate a child to learn, to go to school and to learn, in the beginning, limud, learning, is something that is foreign to him. It's not natural to him to go to learn.
Right.
So you have to add something to it. You have to give him incentives.
Right.
So how do you maybe that's probably $1 million question. How do you make learning enjoyable to children? How do you make learning attractive for kids?
Well, that's what I do with the stories and the singing and the games and all these things for the little kids.
So you have to find things that bring joy and pleasure to him that he didn't experience before, and you associate it with the learning. For example, if your father buys you a special gift, and because you went to school, so you find school, you associate school with gift.
Right.
But this obviously it's only in the beginning.
Right. Otherwise.
So he get accustomed to it. Similarly, with the inauguration of the Beis Hamikdash and the Mishkan and the sanctuary, they added something else to the 2 daily Tamid offering, the constant offering. Shnei kvasim yilchad, 2 sheep. Shu Mishkan is not one Nesim, because at the inauguration of the sanctuary, the Nesim volunteered. Par ben Bako, bull, ulezevach hashlomim. Right, Avinosi had to bring a whole list of korbanos.
Right.
Beis Hamikdash raised Bach Shlomo, and the inauguration of the Beis Hamikdash. Listen carefully. Shlomo Melech brought 120,000 tzoyin, 120,000 tzoyin.
Yeah.
Recorded in the book of Malachim, chapter 1, verse 8 and 63.
He upsets the animal lovers.
Well, if they would understand what was happening, maybe they would be okay with it as well, because it says, this is an additional godly light that descended in a revealed way. How was it? The Shekhinah came down.
Right.
It's not just the Shekhinah descended, but also spiritual light came along with it. So this is really the concept of the inauguration of the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash. In order for the light of the divine presence to descend and to dwell in the Beis Hamikdash, that was built out of wood and stones, which is something of novelty, because Shekhinah was not accustomed, so to speak, to come down into a physical edifice. So there was a need in special korbanos, special offerings, to draw the heart, so to speak, of the Shekhinah. We gave incentive to the Shekhinah. The Chanukas Habis, the inauguration, was an incentive for the Shekhinah to come down to an unusual place. It was not usual before to be revealed in a physical dwelling, and therefore it was not sufficient just bringing regular korbanos like the korban tomid that was brought every day. So rather, in the Chanukas HaMishkan, the inauguration of Mishkan, there was korbanos nesim, the leaders' korbanos that brought about special korbanos. And also in the Beis Hamikdash, Shlomo Melech brought what I said before, the 120,000 sheep, which are something that is supernal and significant, much more than the regular revelation that took place in the Beis Hamikdash, in regular korbanos.
Then I have to understand that the sheep were being elevated by this, being sacrificed. That people don't understand what
this whole concept, yeah.
Therefore, they get animal, whatever.
Okay, Bruchim Tiu. We'll continue, God willing, tomorrow.